Hi, I'm Kelly Rowlett-Presgrave. I'm president and CEO of Work With Your Hands, and we are so proud to be a sponsor of Power Women of the Trades podcast. You can reach us at workwithyourhands.com. Kelly at workwithyourhands.com is my email.
At Relentless Digital, we believe in breaking barriers and driving innovation. That's why we are extremely proud to sponsor the Power Women of the Trades podcast, supporting the voices and success of women in the home service industry. Together, we're creating a future where talent shines regardless of gender and diversity thrives. Join our journey at relentless-digital.com and always be relentless in your pursuit of excellence.
This episode of Power Women of the Trades is also brought to you by Forrest Perry of Forrest Perry Digital Marketing. Want to generate more leads for your service business? Trust his team to deliver quality new customer leads and protect your brand online. Check out perrymarketing.com today.
Chirp, the ultimate automation toolbox for home service businesses. Chirp helps you capture more leads, connect faster, close more deals, and create customers for life. Through text message, email, and ringless voicemail automation, Chirp can help you transform your customer's experience. Learn more in the show notes below.
Welcome to Power Women of the Trades podcast. This show is all about breaking barriers and changing the game. Our guests will feature some of today's most successful female entrepreneurs and other advocates of our industry as well. Because if there's one thing we know for sure, female-led entrepreneurship drives change on multiple levels. We want to empower women in the trade industry like you so you can maximize your potential, stay balanced, achieve long-term success, and claim ownership over your life. Let's get started.
Hi, welcome to Power Women of the Trades podcast with Cassie and Leslie. But today it's just Cassie. We are at the Women of HVAC event in Jacksonville, Florida, and Leslie is out this week. So we're still moms, and so she's momming, and so I totally love her and respect that, and glad that we have that relationship to be able to share this podcast together and do that. So today we have Samantha, and I'm not even going to try to say your last name.
Houchen.
Samantha Houchen. So we met Samantha, Leslie and I, at the AHR Expo in Atlanta, Georgia in February. She was in the audience and probably one of the first people to ever hear anything from the podcast, because we launched from AHR. Yeah. And so you get to be like an OG fan. We'll give it to you.
I'll accept it.
Tell us about yourself.
So I own a heating and air conditioning company in Denver, Colorado with my husband. I was new to the trade 14 years ago when we decided to start the business. My husband had the field experience and my background was like office and accounting. So we just kind of were able to take both sides and start the company. So
kind of the traditional husband-wife story. That's very much like my story. Husband he's got the experience, we jump in. Have you ever rode around, done any of the field stuff? Maybe not jumped in hands-on, or maybe. Oh yeah, no, I especially when we first started, it was just he and I. So he needed help with taking the furnaces down, and I'm not very good at it, but I am kind of okay with cutting metal. It's not pretty, so he'll just kind of tape my things. But just learning that so much too from asking questions. He'd go on a service call, and I'd be like, okay, what was wrong with that furnace? Oh, okay, so it does this, and this. So then I could help kind of navigate people over the phone too. So I just slowly learned, the industry, and it's still, I can help, customers over the phone. Again, it's like, oh, is this happening? Well, have you checked your filter lately? Ask those kind of questions. And so it's been fun. It's a very fun industry to learn. They're so dynamic. There's so much going on. So it's now enough to be dangerous. Yeah. I also, my service techs always joke, because they'll call if they can't get a hold of Chris, and they'll be like, okay, so this is going on, this going on. I'm like, it's a circuit board. I always just say oh, it's probably a circuit board. And a lot of the times I'm dead on, so that I'm I could be a service tech. Well, it's funny because in my company, they all make fun of me that it could be the thermocouple, and so I started talking about that at one point, and then forever when I would be doing a training, I'd always say the thermocouple, and and when I'd be doing the HVAC and plumbing trainings, and always it'd be like, okay, so it's a thermocouple, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. To actually, I am a 3-year apprentice, so I can test to become a journeyman.
Oh, cool.
But I don't have a ton of field experience. So I've been nervous about it. My husband's like, you just got to test, because you're one of those people that could just pass the test, you know, and then become a journeyman. But through the years, we learn those things. And I think that's a big, like, that's a nugget there that you just said of when something would happen, I would ask for what happened. So I kind of knew.
Yeah.
And so you start making things make sense, you know. Just the other day, and my husband had told me something was wrong, and he was helping a service tech. He was troubleshooting him. And then I was in the bedroom, like doing my hair, you know, and I said, okay, it was the blower motor, right? And I said, okay, wait a second. If it's the blower motor and it was working in AC, why is it now not working in heat? Because it should still, and he's like, he comes in there and he gives me like this look. And he's like, I understand your way of thinking right now. He's like, the truth is the blower motor wasn't working great in AC either, but they didn't realize it, you know? And so, cause it hadn't been hot. And he said it was just working at like, you know, 0.5% or whatever, the ECM, whatever. Right. But I appreciate through the years that when I would ask those, he'll come in and be like, okay, I know you're trying to learn right now. Yeah. But picking up those things is really helpful.
I mean, before I started, in the industry, I was that customer that was just like, oh, that thermostat, that's my heating and air. Like I had no idea it was connected to anything. So I've also been able to be really like empathetic to customers when they call, to be like, they're doing the same thing. They're like, I don't know what my AC is, or, oh, normally people think their hot water heater is their furnace and not like the other way around. So it's just been able to like humanize like the situation of the furnace not working or the AC not working, because a lot of the times customers will feel stupid when they call and they're like, I don't know what's what. And it's like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I was the same way. I used to just think the box on the wall, like it just went up and down and it like magically gave me heating and air. Yeah. So it's a very dynamic industry. There's a lot to it, but I love to learn as much about it as I can, especially with like the equipment that we install. I'm always asking questions and trying to figure out like, okay, well, what is this? Why do we have a modulating furnace? What's the difference of 5 stages? Because it just helps me be able to explain it to customers more, and then also explain it to our techs more, so that we're making sure that they're, you know, offering the correct things and that we're putting the right things in for people's houses that have problem areas. And it's just really fun to learn it.
It is. And, you know, have you seen Service Titan started putting out the Blue Collar Nerd, shout out Blue Collar Nerd, and Service Titan sponsor our podcast. But the Blue Collar Nerd has started putting out these videos about how a furnace works and how air conditioning works.
No, that's cool.
And they're on YouTube. If you haven't seen those yet, go check them out. But even doing this now for 10 years, that's been really insightful for me. And so I watched it, and then I brought my CSRs in and our dispatch team and had them watch it, and just being able to understand like, okay, this is the glow rod, this is all the safeties it goes through, the rollout switches, hearing the things that they've heard us replace, but then actually getting to visually see them on the video. Yeah. I didn't realize how helpful that was to them. Yeah. And then I kept going, okay, now you're going to know enough to be dangerous, because the goal is still to book the call. Don't try to diagnose it. We don't want people touching their gas valves and stuff like that, right? Because it's dangerous. But one of the things he said in that video, which was like a light bulb to me, is he said, so many of our customers don't realize that they have a box in their attic with fire in it.
It's true.
And I was like, oh, yep. Because if you told me that as a mom, I would have been like, oh snap, I better get that checked, right? Yeah. But we don't realize that, because the box on the wall makes the heat come on. Yeah. And they're not ever recognizing that, oh, it is a flame up there in a box in my attic. Because if you said that to me, to any rational person, it would make you think a lot harder. I should probably get that thing maintained, right? I should probably make sure that fire is doing all right, you know? And so education is such a piece, but for our technicians too. So when you understand it a little bit differently than they do, and can teach them that, it helps with the education in the house, because everyone is all. I don't want techs to think I'm beating them up. That's not what I mean at all. But get guilty of over technicalizing. Is that a word?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, I mean, I know. Yeah. It's again, trying to come down to like the customer level. I hate using the word like dumb it down, because I don't want my text to dumb something down, but I want them to talk to the customers in a way that it makes sense to the customer, because they have no idea what a gas valve and all this stuff is. They may not even understand how their furnace works. So just, again, humanize with the customer and be like, how do I explain this in a way that makes sense, that's not like kind of like condescending or like talking down to a customer. And it's a really, when you can master that and really understand that customer experience, it's been really great for us for the customer feedback.
Yes, because I think that's, as an industry, that's what we've lacked on for a long time, is the education.
Yeah.
Because we've just said, hey, this needs to be replaced, it's this much money. Hey, this needs to be replace a whole system, it's this much money, but we're not giving them the why or how it operates or what it does. And so when we slow down, one thing in our company, our plan is for a service tech to only have 3 calls a day, and they get a minimum of 2 hours per call, because we want them to take the time to educate.
Yeah.
Because if not, if you're just slinging in parts and you're just slinging in suggestions. And then how many times, so many companies are like, we require, them to give 3 options, and some people disagree with that. But I say it's a CYA scenario, because if they only fix the minimal, but then the other pieces that we talked about break, we've already talked about that. But you don't realize how much credibility you lose with your customer when you go in and replace just the capacitor, but never actually say, hey, the condenser fan motor is probably going out too. But now when the condenser fan motor goes out in a week, it's your fault.
Yeah. Or you go in and it's a trip breaker and you just turn the breaker on. Okay, you're good to go. Here's your service call fee, and then leave. And then it keeps tripping because the compressor is probably bad. So taking time, like we kind of do the same thing. So each service tech has 4 calls a day. That's it. And then it's an hour and a half. And then we give like travel time. But it's, again, to slow them down. And we don't do like the windows of like they'll be there between 8 and 12 and like just jam as many calls in there. We prefer like a quality call over quantity. And we feel that it's really built, again, customer, like just the reputation that we have with customers. They know that we're not going to go in there and just try to sell them something or lie to them and be like, oh, your heat exchanger is broken. You need a whole new furnace. Here's your the yellow tape and a lot of tactics that we see in our market. We take the time, we explain it. We'll even show the customer like, hey, in the springtime, take the hose nozzle off, wash off the outside, but we don't touch anything inside. There's little things that you can do to maintain it. And then again, that just builds up the customer's confidence. And a lot of times they don't want to do that. They don't want to actually clean off the condenser. So they'll call us to do maintenance, or they'll get on our membership plan. We show them how to change their filter. So and explain how important it is. Please change your filter. And it's educating the customer to making them understand what their system is and what it's doing. And it's so it's important. Fire, and we have basements, not attic. We have some attics.
But right. Or it's wherever it's at, it's still fire and it's dangerous, right? House. But still think about, we see all the tactics, the things and I'm sure someone somewhere is like, oh, if they were wanting 3 options, sometimes there's not 3 options to offer a customer. Yes, there is.
There's
always. Think about your the sequence of operation. Think about what could fail or what hasn't failed. Test everything. But there was a lot of people that we've seen in our space where that maybe someone worked for a company that did those processes, and then they said, I can do it cheaper, and then they cheapen their experience. But then when you're just that one guy, you're cheapening your experience and maybe charging less because you can. But then when that fails, the things you didn't talk about, you're the bad guy, and you're losing your credibility, you're losing your reputation. And so, because we were the same people, we started with our company, and we cheapened our experience. And it took us about 2 years of realizing that, the reason why we have to charge that much is when something fails and it's under warranty, there's coverage in that. And there's so much that you just don't realize in business that happens outside of the repair.
I think my husband and I always joke that we learn everything the hard way. So like that's how we've developed every process and procedure, is that we have literally had to fall down to then pick it back up and be like, okay, so let's never do this again.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is the procedure going forward. And we laugh about it, but at the same time, it's like, how else are you going to know unless you're doing it?
Right.
You can go to classes and hear like all this stuff like, oh, do this, do this, do this. And it doesn't always make sense until something happens. And then it's like, okay, we need to make sure that we're protected. We make sure the customer's protected. How do we make sure that it makes sense business wise? But yeah, some of our best things have come from some of our biggest failures. And I just think that's one of the cool things about owning a small business and building a small business is, the ebbs and flows of it.
Yeah. It's crazy. I felt I wanted to be like, preach, because again, we've learned a lot of hard lessons.
Yeah.
We've almost lost it all. We've almost gone broke. We all have the same story, like I will talk to my good friend a couple weeks ago, and he's like, money was never a struggle for me. And I'm like, what? Okay. I was like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
Because there's so many times that, it's just like you had gambled everything, you know, and we had to learn all the hard lessons. But at the end of the day, if you just keep it to the root of the education to the customer, and then your employee too, because they want to work for a good place. They want to work for a company that takes care of them, offers good things, and is about education for them as well.
Yeah, we really try to work on or like emphasize customer stuff. Like we'll do a bunch of stuff with them throughout the years. We'll do like quarterly events where we just close the office for the day, even in summertime. And we've gone Topgolf. We've gone to an archery, like dart place. We've done escape rooms, like those kind of like fun team building things. And that employees love it. And because they don't, all the techs don't always see each other. They see the office people, but they don't see each other. It's like kind of rare. So they get to all come together. They get to kind of like sometimes commiserate about like, oh, do you remember this job? Or I saw this. And the installers are there. So it's a really fun way to have the team come together. And we've grown since 2019. We've done a lot of growth. And it's you have like the older techs that have been there for a while from like kind of the start, and like they get to meet the newer techs, and it's like, I don't know. It's just, I don't think people do enough emphasis on employee stuff. I think a lot of the times you hear like, well, that's what they're paid for, and that's what their job is, and it's. I think you can have that mentality, but still make it a fun and exciting place to work, because if not, like they can just go somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I've talked to so many people through the years that they always disagree with me, because we dispatch from our office every day. We do not dispatch from our house. And everyone's like, how do you do that? Why do you make them come in? Well, first of all, in Tulsa, you can be anywhere in 15 minutes. Okay. So it's quick and it's fine, even with our location. But because it gives them 30 minutes every single day to see their team and to talk about what's happening. And I can't replicate that any other way than that 30 minutes every morning. So they get there at 7:30, they get 30 minutes, they clean out their vans, they get some parts if they need it, but then they're hanging out at the coffee pot, water cooler talk, right? They're just talking about repairs that they did yesterday or what they did. Beyond that, we do, several trainings a week, but that 2.5 hours a week, we're paying it. Eventually it ends up into overtime, probably, whatever. But it gives them that time to just build a relationship, because we forget as owners and office staff that most of the time these guys are in a truck by themselves. Yeah. And that's pretty isolating, you know. We use Teams. A lot of people use Slack or whatever, but we use Microsoft Teams. And so we're always communicating, and our Teams chat will be going crazy sometimes. And I'm like, it's like a Facebook post sometimes, and it's just like blowing up about, look how dirty this filter is. But all of that relationship started by the morning time, and again, like I said, I know not every market can do that, but it's so important to let your employees build a relationship with each other, because they're spending, even if they're by themselves, they're communicating with someone at the office, and they spend more time with their fellow staff than most of the time their family.
Well, and we also too, we unfortunately, I love the idea of dispatching in the morning. We're very spread out. Denver is huge, but you know, our service techs were like, please call each other. If you're on a call and you just need to bounce an idea off it, there's no ego there. Like check it and like just call somebody else. And all you may need to do is kind of slow down and retrace some steps, and like they could kind of help. Like, let's do it as like a camaraderie. Let's do it as a team. And then that helps the customer. That helps the service tech even learn of like, oh, maybe I should have checked it this way and would have been easier. So I wish that sometimes, and there's some techs, unfortunately, that they don't work for us, but we just know of them that like will refuse to ask questions. And we know what type of tech will fit for the weather changers and what type won't. And we'd really try to make sure that like all of our techs are willing to work together and want to work together, because at the end of the day, it's about the customer experience, and we push that really hard.
Yeah, it is. And that relationship's so important. One of our kids is a service tech for us. He's 19 years old. He's been in the industry with us forever, right? Since he was 14, he's really been exposed to it. On paper, he's 5 years experience, but he's 19 years old. You know, he doesn't know everything. And some of the biggest training that he's gotten has been from his fellow service techs, and not necessarily dad, because the owner, even if it wasn't dad, it's the owner or it's the manager or it's the whatever. But breaking down, you know, you have to be vulnerable to say, hey, I don't know how to fix this right now. And, you know, men and women are not always great at that, sharing those vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah.
Of saying like, hey, how do I fix this? How do I do this? And, you know, even in business like that, I have said this story so many times on this podcast. I just brought it up earlier. Leslie and I's friendship became so much bigger and better and fruitful when we were real with each other and said, dude, why are we running these businesses? What are we doing? You know, like whether the cash flow sucks or, you know, just like being raw with each other. And then when we broke down those walls with each other, we were able to identify different things and how to fix it, you know, and it's the same thing with the techs.
Well, I definitely think I feel like on a business owner, anytime we get together with other business owners, it's like, oh, so where are you at with sales right now? How are things? And it's always like a fluffed up number. So to find those people that you can really connect to and be vulnerable and be honest to, and be like, I've had a really bad summer. It was supposed to be great. I had this, and this happen. And then it's like, you can kind of commiserate, but then also talk about like best business practices and like learn from each other. You obviously can't always take every procedure that one company has and make it your procedure, but you can take tidbits and that can help you grow. And I wish more people would be willing to just, you know, take their guard down and have the conversation. And it doesn't have to be like this failure if you're like, oh, I'm talking to somebody who's at a $4 million in revenue and I'm only at 2 million. Like it's not your failure. It's use that as motivation to get to that 4 million. We can learn so much from each other. And I just don't think that we tap into that as much as we should.
And then just be careful until you truly get to know someone and you know that they're being truly open and honest with you. Be careful with the stuff that you consume and you take to heart, because there's, you know, I've told this story earlier again of like, you know, talking to someone and then being at these events sometimes, and I've had to take my team back to the room and say, okay, stop, family meeting, they're full of crap.
Yeah.
You know, because everything that they just said, let's do the math behind it.
Right.
You know, they said they're at this much revenue, but they told us this KPI, but if we just did the math on that KPI, they would have been 4 times more in revenue.
Yeah.
Right. But often we just put up those walls and we're nervous and we just glow, you know, we're throwing out bigger numbers because it sounds better and we think it does. But then you don't realize that when you just said that to someone who's much smaller and they're like, oh my gosh, we're not doing revenue like that. We don't have a close rate like that. And they don't ever do the math behind it to see that they're full of crap. You know, and you're like, that's so dangerous. And so that's been like my mission for a while, like on my social media platforms of like, don't say stuff like this to people.
Yeah.
Like the world is not always falling, you know, sometimes the close rates are great this week and sometimes they're bad. And that's why it's the average, you know? But just be so careful with, you know, and don't be afraid to fact check them. Maybe not to them, you know, but if someone tells you some, you know, revenue number that doesn't make any sense with, I had someone tell me once that they had like 22 trucks, but they did like $3 million a year. And I'm like, you got a lot of overhead and you're not making any money.
Most businesses' online presence is boring. And by being boring, they're losing out on potential sales and customers. Being interesting and exciting is what draws customers in and gets them to buy from you. But it's hard to be interesting online when you're focused on running your business and taking care of your customers. It doesn't have to be this way. We have the key to unlocking the solution to your problem. Key Heart Marketing can help take your business from boring to brilliant on social media. We can vouch for them. They run our podcast socials. If you want to have a strong social media presence that allows customers to know, like, and trust you, connect with Key Heart Marketing at keyheartmarketing.com.
Okay, so at the Women of HVAC event for Bryant, that gets confusing because those are two different companies, not companies, but in
Conferences,
conferences. But the Bryant event, a couple years ago, you were getting to sit in the audience at the event, was really excited. And then this year, something exciting happened.
I got asked to be on a panel. So it was like it was like this full circle moment that I was like, this would be so awesome to one day be on the stage and talk to people and inspire one person in the audience the way that I was inspired. So winning the Bryant Dealer of the Year allowed me to then be invited back on the stage, because so much of my story is the conference and what I learned from it and what I took away from it. And so it was really cool to be on that stage and be able to have that moment. And I shared it with my TM too. Yeah. So it was cool to talk about our relationship and how working together and has really helped our company, and, having a partner and having like a support system. So it was that full circle moment for me.
And really, like, going back to that conference from a couple of years ago, you realized that you needed to become a better partner, you said, for your husband, and you're no longer, just the lady in the office and just the person behind the scenes. Like, you didn't correct people when they said, your husband is the owner, but, it made me think, like, I am more than just, like, you are more than just those things. And so how do you feel that original conference empowered you?
I just, again, sitting in front of around so many like just badass women, watching them, listening to them, like, they were accepting awards, and it's like, wow, I didn't realize that this was even really an option for women in the trades. Because from what I knew, it was, my company. It was, smaller dealer meetings where you see like very little women in those audiences. And this was an entire conference full of the same people, business owners, distributors, factory people. And it's like, no, they're loud and they're proudly in this industry. And so again, it was just this huge confidence boost for me to come home and take that step away from, like, not even behind. It's not like my husband was like, you stay back here. It was just, I was putting myself into this box of like, I'm just the lady who answers the phones, or I'm just the office person. And I took myself out and I took my step forward, and Chris and I then started, walking and managing the company, side by side. Yeah. And it has been a huge change for us.
And, you were on that panel this year, and 3 years ago you were in the audience, and those women were so empowering to you. And this year you were that for so many people. And we don't always give ourselves credit for that when we come off a stage or whatever. We just think, well, they just had us, I was just up here to say I work and do this. But, there are people in that audience that heard your story and gave you that same motivation, or you gave them that same motivation that you got 3 years ago. And that's the point of these conferences. That's the point of sharing your story. And we're not saying, hey, look at me. We're just saying, you can do it too. And everyone's capable, and you're not just the lady in the office, you are way more than that. And there's so many opportunities in our trades, and we're not going anywhere. The trade, not just as women, but the trades aren't going anywhere. We're here.
No, I mean, 2020 proved that we are essential. We are here. We're never going to leave. And, to the conference point, it's also showing that you don't have to have a 50-person van van, like a 50 fleet of vans to be successful. We are a company of 11 people, and we won this pretty prestigious award of Bryant Dealer of the Year. And it didn't go to just a big dealer; it went to a small dealer, and that too, I hope, really was a good takeaway of like showing people that it's heating and air is all different sizes, shapes and sizes as well. Not every company is a giant company. Small businesses can be impactful in the industry as much as a large company is.
Absolutely. Well, I have enjoyed talking with you today. I am super proud of everything that you've done for yourself and that you were willing to share your story. Your story is so important for everyone else, and keep sharing it. Be willing to as a Christian woman, we say share our testimony all the time, but this is a part of that you have a testimony for your career as well. I would also say to everyone listening, if you are looking for that resource in how to get that new connection, how to build that network, maybe there's not an event coming up for a while, a couple of places that would be really quick and easy for you to jump in head first would be the Lady Titans Facebook group, the Women of HVAC Facebook group, and then just search in the Facebook group, Women in Heat and Air, and you would be surprised with how many show up, and just start there. As always, you're always welcome to Facebook message me or Leslie. I'm sure Samantha would be willing to take those messages as well, and just make the first move. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
This has been Power Women of the Trades. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review at Apple, and make sure to listen to our other episodes wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.